thanks everybody for hanging in. I know it's been a long day. We're the only thing standing between you and cocktail hour. So Jim, first, do you want to start by pronouncing your last name?
Jim D'Arcangelo. Here we go.
So I have had about 4 decades of experience both in financial services, technology, and the last 15 years as an owner of my own marketing consulting business. I've written 4 books, including a guide for young women entering the workforce. And I'll talk in a little while about a project that Jim and I, actually 2 projects that Jim and I have collaborated on.
Jim D'Arcangelo. I am the SVP of Growth Marketing UpCity. I've spent the last 25 years in the tech marketing space, specifically marketing to the local market space. I've had 4 exits along the way and an IPO. So probably the backbone of achieving that along the way has been building very diverse teams, the vast majority of which have had a vast majority of women in direct report roles. So speak firsthand. I've actually started keeping track and counting. Have actually hired and promoted well over 150 women over the course of my career. So yeah, it's speak to the power of diverse teams.
And Jim and I have worked together at 3 SaaS companies, and he actually helped me get my start in content strategy and generation. I joke around that he helped me put the sassy into SaaS. But last summer we collaborated on a primer on AI, machine learning, and robotics called Embrace the Machine, which led to my writing a column for Inc.com called Bots and Bodies about the human side of technology. And the first project we collaborated on was actually Jim's idea that came out of him working for a SaaS company where 65% of the customers were women, and had the idea that we develop an online community for women entrepreneurs. So that is still alive and well and thriving. It's called sheBOOM, and it doesn't sugarcoat the life of a female founder. It's really real and raw and tells stories about women who've built businesses from zero to, in some cases, multi-millions of dollars. So, since the title of our talk is How Do We Get There? I'd like to begin by just defining where there is. It's a world where there is wage and funding parity, and basically that means that people of all, both genders, of diverse backgrounds, are getting paid equally for equal work, and women who are going out to get funding are being funded at the same level as men for comparable business ideas. The next one is really key. I recently did a panel at the Sweets and Snacks Expo, and the first question the organizers asked me was, are men allowed in the room? And I think that, and I said, of course, and I think that's really, really important, that if we're going to be able to fix some of these issues, they're going to come from having open, honest discussion about what some of the issues are and what some of the solutions are, and we're going to talk about some of the ideas for fixing the problem in a few minutes. And this one is really key. As we move towards an AI world, and it's happening really, really rapidly, that gap is going to widen because if women are not keeping up at the pace in the technology world as men, and this tsunami of AI hits, and women aren't keeping their skills sharp, they're going to be left behind, or worse yet, replaced by robots and machines. And this came up earlier today for those of you who watch Westworld. One of the things we really have to be careful about as we move to change the world is that we not become angry, or worse yet, violent women. And these are the 2 hosts in the TV show Westworld who basically go berserk because they're so angry about how they've been objectified. So we don't want to go there. Having grown up in the 70s, I really do believe that there are peaceful and yet forceful and persistent solutions to issues, that we don't have to resort to nagging, whining, complaining.
Thanks, Nancy. So having been in the marketing to the local marketplace for the last 25 years, one of the things that's like completely perplexing to me is that women are underrepresented in tech companies that serve the local marketplace. Women on the consumer side especially represent the majority of purchase decision makers and influencers in many sectors in the local marketplace, service sectors, so on, certainly health and wellness. They represent the majority of business owners that we're marketing to. Even local media users of media in the local marketplace, specifically you look at Pinterest, you look at Snapchat, you look at Instagram, certainly beyond the social aspect, from a business aspect in terms of Facebook even, women are driving the local marketplace, and it doesn't seem to make any sort of sense for women to be underrepresented in local tech. Nancy had brought up the creation of sheBOOM. I was heading up the marketing for the tech company, speaking to the local marketplace, specifically marketing to health and wellness, and didn't take a lot of market research to see that 65% of our customers were women business owners. Women business owners who were facing business challenges, women business owners who were looking for a community, for a network, for connections locally, and that didn't exist. So the marketer in me said, wow, here's a really underserved opportunity. And then I looked at, so how do we do that? And that's how I reached out to Nancy, who, oh, by the way, happens to be a 15-year woman business owner. What better way to speak to women business owners than to have a person who actually lives it and knows it? So that's just a question I think we all have to kind of ask if that's the situation in our organization right now. Nancy? Nancy, mentioned there's a lot of different issues and challenges. We all know about the wage gaps. We've all heard about, the tech space, the funding debacles with the Me Too situation over the course of the last year, surfacing some of the VC issues and frat boy cultures. We see it everywhere in movies and TV, news stories everywhere. One of the things I've noticed and certainly witnessed firsthand, though, where I would lean into women to step up is just through my own examples and situations I've lived through. In terms of, we'll take the example of speaking up. I've had situations where women were ready to take the next step. Women were more than deserving of a big pay raise, and I've had them, never happened from a man, I've had them actually say, you know what, I don't think I'm ready for that. I think that pay raise is too much. I don't think this job that I'm doing deserves that level. And I would strongly urge just have faith in what you're doing. If it's a bigger job, if it's a bigger pay raise, there's an expectation that you're ready for that, and there's an expectation based on what you've done that you're more than ready of it. Another thing that I just seen a study that's just come out about women not opting in, while the number of women applying to tech jobs is ticking up and is in the right direction relative to men. Most startling fact that I saw was actually, if you fast forward 3 years, for both men and women starting on the tech space, 47% of women have dropped out compared to only 12% of men. And that's tough. It really does speak to the eroding and the chewing at the roots that Nancy had mentioned to relative, if you fast forward 10 or 15 years in the AI space, at that kind of rate of attrition, you can't keep it up, you can't make it up in volume.
So I'm proof positive that tenacity and speaking up pays off. I spent a good chunk of my career working in financial services, working in fintech before there even was fintech, working for technology-driven bank and for a credit card company. And what's really key is not only learning how to find your voice, to speak up, to ask for what you want and deserve. And if you have an education gap, we all have probably felt that imposter syndrome where we've been offered a job that we maybe in our heads feel like we're not quite ready for. I was an English and psychology major, and I was working at a senior level for a bank. So I just studied up on what I didn't know, and I hate the expression, fake it till you make it. Instead, I'd like to just say, seek out the education you need to get to that next step. Find a mentor. And some of my best mentors have actually been men. They put the men in mentor. Lauren Smith, who I worked for at Citibank, who's now 80 years old, took a chance and gave me a job as chief of staff when I had an 8-week-old baby at home, and never regretted it. Either of us never regretted it. I talked about mentorship, and for the women in the audience, I think this is really key. As you climb up the ladder, be sure you're bringing other women along with you. I think that is still a huge problem in our business world. And when I think about the detractors in my career, they have been women more often than they have been men. So I think that is a real problem when we need to start acknowledging and speaking about. Involving the men in conversations, I talked about that a little bit earlier, and approaching things with candor, knowing your facts, and just checking the anger and the resentment at the door, because nobody ever wins a negotiation by yelling or screaming or whining or crying or being bitter. You have to, as I say, negotiate like a dude if you want to get that seat at the table.
Thank you. So, quick getting into some tactics as to how to change your path. I mean, first off, hopefully organizations aren't on the path of being really tilted and not being represented fully and properly with women in specific roles and certainly leadership roles. One of the things that I've done, I'd mentioned, I've done some success in terms of exits. But certainly in the last 3 or 4 years, my teams have won lots of awards based on results. And one of the ways the teams have been very strong is that I very, very proactively manage to an extremely diverse team. So I will have people from their 20s, 30s, 40s, 50s, 60s, literally each decade represented. I will have every sexual orientation. I will have Muslims, Indians, Christians, atheists. I will have everything under the sun, and not large teams. We're talking about teams, 12, 13 people. But what that means is that you not only do more diverse teams make better decisions, more diverse teams have very, very few blind spots. And part of the way you actually make that happen gets kind of into some of the things listed below. First thing, though, is going the extra recruiting mile after you've taken a look at where you are. Is the team where it should be? And if not, whether you're leading the team or whether you're mid-level, whatever it might be, it's time to step up and raise the issue and take some action on it. The extra recruiting mile. I always look at basically putting jobs on LinkedIn or Glassdoor or whatever as a marketer. If I only marketed in one channel, if I only leaned on SEO, think of all of the different ways people might find my company that wouldn't be represented by just marketing one channel. So going the extra recruiting mile, I actively use LinkedIn, and when I see a younger woman who puts a great article out, I reach out and try to connect with her. If I see a woman make a great presentation, I try to connect with her. The reason that is that then when I have a position, I can recruit within my network, and I don't just rely on the people who react to a job opening, but I can actually reach out. So the last 2 companies I've been in, actually my first hires were African American women, one for a director of demand generation role, another to head up social media. And I will hear that those are extremely tough people to find. I've heard in the tech space they don't exist. But I actually, in each of those, I really plowed and plowed and plowed and plowed into my network till I found them. And they're superstars. They're some of the best hires that they're anchoring new teams. Job descriptions. We all know, if you're going to put in your job descriptions that the team plays blow pong every Friday night after work till somebody gets sick, they're going to be people that you don't attract. So really, job descriptions have to be really open, sensitive, and pretty empathetic. Team structures. One of the things I've found also in terms of success with teams is a matrix structure where people still have accountability for their numbers and what they own versus silos and stovepipes. So the team structure ensures that everybody is engaging and collaborating with everybody, and for everybody to succeed, they have to lean on everybody. Which means you get more input, you get more opinion, you get more discussion. You also have, which I've had on many occasions, if something's about to go out the door from a marketing communications perspective that just doesn't ring true or rings badly, people will raise their hand and say, we can't say that. And we have very, very few mistakes, I think, because of that kind of structure and that collaboration and that composition of the team. Even team decision-making processes, make sure everybody has a voice. And if you don't hear from somebody, include them. Don't let them just sit there quietly. There's the understanding, catering to individual needs and goals, and career mentoring. One of the things you also just need to understand as an organization leader is that everybody has different goals. Some people like to get up in the morning and spin and roll into the office at 9. Some people like to work in the middle of the night. Some people have young children. Some people don't want to be the CEO someday. Some people just really want to have a really, strong work-life balance. Some people want to see friends after work every day. So it is a case of just as a leader taking it upon yourself to make sure that you're proactively reaching out and building plans around each person. And again, that not only helps welcome people, but it helps retain them.
And the real value of having a diverse work team is it ultimately results in better, more targeted marketing. I don't know how many of you have heard the story about the fact that they had to reprogram Alexa because she had been built by an all-male team of engineers, and when you talked disrespectfully to her, she went silent as opposed to pushing back. Or looking at campaigns and saying, if we're targeting women with this campaign, maybe it'd be a good idea to have a woman look at it and make sure that it really speaks to her. I put together a compendium of some really great resources, not just statistics about where women currently are in the tech world, but also programs that are underway. There's also a really, really great recruiting source if you are looking to hire or you're looking for speakers for an event, where you can find women, because I've had people say to me, oh, it's really hard. And I always say really hard has never been an excuse that I could use for anything in my life. It is a challenge, but there are resources out there. So this is a Google form. We'll also be around at the cocktail party. If you have questions, I'm getting the time sign. So that's all we have time for now, but please seek us out in the after party if you have any questions or perspective on this. So thank you all.
Thank you, and thank you, Street Fight.